All right, everybody, maybe 6 times a charm. I am having a heck of a time with this video recording. I'm trying to show you how to critique your FMX for retakes. So what I want to do is I'm going to circle all the areas that we're seeing the criteria that we want, and then I'm going to put like maybe a rectangle around. I'll circle the open contacts, and I'll put a rectangle around the apices, and then we'll see in the end the areas that we do not see and whether or not we need to take a retake on that film or not. So that's sort of the process. Is you're going to go methodically through your FMX, and you're going to say, where do I see these open contacts and these apices? And, you know, is there limited distortion, that sort of thing. And then what's left, you're going to determine where the retakes are. So let's start with the open contacts. Now, when you're looking at open contacts, you if there's a little bit of overlap, it's okay as long as it's not more than 50% into the enamel. So this is really hard to say. We're going to have to just pretend a little bit because we can't zoom into these images in this format that I'm doing. So we just kind of have to do the best we can. But I can see that between the third molar and the second molar, this contact is at least less than 50%. This is open here. This is the premolars are wide open here, distal of the canine here, premolars here again. This is less than 50%. Distal of the canine it's on a corner in both of these images. Let's just go with it is less than 50%, even though it's a little bit, even though it's a little bit hard to say for sure, but let's just say that it is open. So then the only areas that we do not have an open contact is this. To me, I'm just guessing, is more than 50%, and we also never opened the distal of the first molar and the mesial of the second molar. So I'm going to choose a different thing. I think I'll just do a freehand, and I'm going to put an X here and an X here, and this is the same thing. This is the first and second molar, and then again here it's closed, so it's closed everywhere, and the distal of the second premolar. So okay, so that's the contacts on that side. So then if we come over here to the opposite side of the patient, I'm going to go back to my little circle. We can see we have the distal of the canine here. We have the distal of the canine here. This is also kind of borderline. It's kind of borderline. Let's move on from there. In between the premolars, this looks like it's more than 50% on the distal of the first molar, but possibly less than 50% on the second premolar. So this is going to be, again, it's a judgment call that it's hard for us to see in this format. I'm going to say that it's closed, that I can't actually see it. And then the same with this space here. This space, it looks like it might actually be open, but there's quite a bit of vertical angulation. But let's just say that we can see it here, but we can't see in between the premolars. So that is a possible no. We have an open contact here. Oops, thinking I can. And then this is less than 50% here. We have good open contacts down here for these molars. So that's good. So the only thing, and then this looks like less than 50% for the second and the third. So now the only one that doesn't look so great is the distal of the first and the mesial of the second. This could be open here. It's very hard to say. And then there's vertical angulation error, so that makes it a little distorted. Let's just say it's okay, but it's really hard to say in this format because I can't zoom in. Okay, so then if we choose what areas to X out, we can't see the distal of the first premolar, mesial second molar, and we said that we can see that there. So we're good there. We got the premolars, the distal of the canine here, the distal of the canine there. I think that that's probably a little bit more than 50. Well, I think that's on the border. It's just too hard to say without being able to enlarge it like we would in VixWin. Okay, so now let's move on to, so that's what you do with your contacts, is you basically go through your bite wings first because that's your most likely place, and then you look through your other films, look through your PAs to see where you were able to open contacts just serendipitously when you were taking your PA. So now we want to look at our apices. So I'm going to use a box. So we have all the apices of our molars here, and then we have a little bit of the mesial root here. We have our premolars here. This is just barely squeaking by with our canine. He's got a very long canine. We have the lateral here, both laterals here, the lateral here again. This one, I'm having a hard time, but I think, I mean, unless that goes off the image, I was assuming the apice ended here, but I see something like that. I'm just going to pretend that I can see the canine and that it's there, but I have a feeling there's it's going off the page. These here, they would just barely squeak by. This is really almost not really 2 millimeters above this one. Above the second premolar, it looks okay, but that's really right on the border, and the doctor would probably want to see a little bit more space, and then you could address the canine. So it could be more of an anterior shot. So let's put an X here. Let's put an X here for that one. And that we could hopefully include the canine in this as well. Okay, let's go back to the box. So then for our molars, we have all of our molar apices there. So we're good there. We cannot see any of our apices in these shots. We do have our canine. We do have all of our incisors. We have our canine and our first premolar. We do not have the second, well, oh, is that 2 millimeters? It's like, again, this is hard to say unless we can zoom in, because then we can actually measure it. In VixWin, there's wonderful ways. If you feel like you're on the border and you're not sure, there's measuring tools so you can actually see if it's 2 millimeters. This one, I'm just not sure. However, we definitely do not see the mesial root. We can see the distal root of the first molar, and then we can see the apice of the second and third. But I'm going to say, so let me get my freehand tool here. I'm going to say that we cannot see the apices of the premolar or the mesial root of the first molar. We cannot see these apices. We cannot see these apices. So what we have here is a situation where we have, at very least, let's start determining retake. So I'm going to try and draw an R freehand. So we know that we can't see in between the first and second molar here and the first molar and the second premolar here. So we also can't see the apices down here, but that's not going to show us these interproximal spaces. So my goal would probably be to take a film somewhere in between. We have the distal of the canine. We already have the distal of the canine here and the distal of the canine here. So my goal would probably be to take one retake and have it be set back a little bit so that we try and open up both the interproximal space between the molars and the molar and the premolar. So I would probably go for one retake here. And then here we want to get the contact, but we also need this apice. So then I'm going to try and take one retake here. I'm going to take it as a PA, and I'm going to use my Q-tip to try and open up the contact. So I'm going to take kind of a premolar shot. I'm going to try and get anterior, but I'm going to try and actually open up this contact. So I'm going to make I'm going to pay close attention to my horizontal angulation so that I can combine these two films. So I got one retake here where I'm going to try and open up both of these contacts, and then I'm going to do one retake here where I get the apice and I open up the contact. And then down here, we have the canine already, so we don't have to try and go too far, but the chances of getting this wisdom tooth and the premolars in one shot, because we have this gap, is not very likely, so you'll probably need to take 2 retakes, one with the molars and then one with the premolars. This patient was obviously having a hard time biting down. It was probably hurting, so then you want to think about using a snap array or that little foamy kind of squishy thing that you can put on the bottom of your film to help it be more comfortable. And then over here, we need a retake for these apices. So you can see we're already up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 retakes. That is a lot when you've taken an FMX. So we may, possibly reconsider, like say, you might look and say, okay, is this really 50%? You'd be able to zoom in. I do think this is 50%. I do think these molar contacts are absolutely closed. And then it doesn't, so you could focus more on that. And we could say this is open enough, but that still constitutes a retake. So we're still at really 5. Truly, we're at 5. So 5 retakes is a lot of retakes for a patient who just had a full FMX, but it's allowed and it happens, and we are in a learning environment. But you would never ever start taking your retakes ever until your faculty came in and helped you, because with the faculty help, you're going to minimize the chance of having to redo something even again, and you're going to increase your success of hopefully, getting what you need, seeing what you need to see. All right, I hope that brought some explanations. Please let me know of questions that you have on this, areas that you feel like maybe don't make sense per something else that we talked about, to clear something up. So, all right, see you soon.